Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Ingalls, and this is my discussion post on medical tourism. So starting out, the three most impactful points, I thought anyways, from the Forbes article. The first one being cosmetic surgeries make up only about 13% of the surgeries considered in medical tourism. I thought that was really impactful because for me myself personally, whenever I think of medical tourism or how it's portrayed in media, television, stuff like that, it's always seen, or at least I view it as, people saying it's like cosmetic, unnecessary procedures, plastic surgery, stuff like that. But that's really not the case. They talk about how 30% of the surgeries are just your general surgeries, and then 50% are actually dental procedures. So a lot of medical tourism is more of that necessary, not cosmetic, unnecessary procedures. The next point I thought was really impactful was where they talked about how Houston has the largest medical center on earth, Texas Medical Center. When I view medical tourism for myself, it's people leaving the US to go to Mexico, the Middle East, Asia, wherever. And that's really not the case. There's a lot of medical tourism happening, people coming into the US. And I also thought it was very interesting and impactful how they talk about the multiple hospitals there, the airports, restaurants, hotels, how all of these different industries have to work together for medical tourism to really thrive. And just, it's not just strictly a medical thing where, like I said, the restaurants, the airports, the hotels, they all have to work together to meet all of these people's needs. And the third thing that I thought was really impactful is where in the video they said medical tourists in Houston pay 10 times what regular tourists do for tourism. I thought that was very impactful. It just shows how much of an economic thing medical tourism really is. They did also talk about how the people there for medical tourism are more affluent, meaning they have more money to spend, and that's just really shown when they're spending 10 times what regular tourists do. I thought that was very impactful. Next, for Rand Paul's TED Talk, what I thought was the primary message or most impactful was where they said, basically, you can get first world medical care for third world prices. So they're talking about medical care that you could get here at thousands and thousands of dollars, where there it might only be a couple $1,000s. And although that's great for people like Bob she used for an example, she also talked about how it has negative consequences on the developing countries. She talked about how medical providers in these third world developing countries start out in the public sector, so serving the people of that country, but then they move into the private sector to be able to earn more money, which causes then they brain drain and increases their medical disparities in these countries. So although it's beneficial that they're getting the influx of, the cash and the economic boost, it's also detrimental because then they're still, having their skilled doctors and stuff no longer servicing the populations in these countries, but instead servicing the private sector where they can get more money from the people coming there specifically for medical tourism. And then as far as research myself, whenever I personally think medical tourism, I think South Korea. You see videos all the time, you hear stories of people going to South Korea for plastic surgery. So I found an article from Stanford, an article breaking down costs for surgeries in South Korea, and also a YouTube video on surgeries in South Korea. South Korea is a huge hub for plastic surgeries. It's something they do frequent and it's something they do well. And it's because it's just so much cheaper, not only for people in the US, but for people all around the world, they go there. And I did read in the chart there at the website I found, even for just like a simple rhinoplasty, $2,000, which is cheaper than some people's entire insurance premiums. So it's kind of a no-brainer that insurance has a big effect there, where you can go and pay for the same procedure and not even have to involve insurance. And motivation, basically there is the video that I saw. They get in, they do the consultation, they do the outpatient procedure that day. So the motivation for these going there and doing the medical tourism to South Korea is it's fast, it's cheap, and it's quality surgery for most places because they're doing them so often. They do them very well. And then finally, as far as personal experience with medical tourism, I've never really had any family or even myself had to go anywhere for medical tourism, leave the state even. The only experience I really even have is my grandfather when he was getting treatment, he was seen at Mayo in Minnesota for a little bit. And that's just, I guess, tourism just domestically here, where he leaves the state to go to Minnesota. But that's really my only experience with that. All right. Thank you.